Good morning, good evening, and good night to all of you. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Ryan Christian. I am from Faculty of Medicine, University of Pajajaran, with the student number 130-110-190-149. So today I'm going to discuss a little bit about the genetics in sleep and circadian rhythm. First of all, let us see what's the definition of sleep. Most of you might have known sleep as a passive activity in daily lives, but it was correct only until the 1950s that sleep is taught as a passive, dormant part of our lives. 70 years from 1950, nowadays we know sleep as an active part of our life, where our brains are very active during sleep. So what is the definition of sleep? Sleep itself is defined as a condition where our consciousness is decreased and our response to stimulus is also decreased. Another definition of sleep is a natural, easily reversible, periodic state of many living things that is marked by the absence of wakefulness and by the loss of consciousness of one's surroundings. It is usually accompanied by typical body posture such as laying down and eyes closed. And sleep is also indicated by occurrence of dreaming, changes in brain activity, and physiological functions. But this is not always true for all human beings. It differs from people to people. Some people might sleep about 8 hours in a day, and some others might sleep a little longer time, around 10 hours, or maybe some sleeps around 6 hours a day. But a very small amount of people in this world can withstand 1 year without sleep at all. So what causes that? First of all, sleep is an activity that usually takes up 1/3 of our life. That is usually noted by 8 hours in a day from 24 hours. So sleep must be really important. What makes it so important that all people have different sleep patterns? Obviously, sleep is one of the physiological conditions in the human body. Circadian rhythm, which is basically a pattern for our lives that occurs every 24 hours, is one of the major factors affecting sleep patterns. So what is circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is basically a rhythm that occurs in the human body that regulates nearly everything in the human body. It regulates things from metabolism to the release of hormones and, of course, sleep patterns. So, within the circadian cycle, it occurs in 24 hours and sleep takes up 8 hours out of the 24 hours, although it differs from people to people. And what affects circadian rhythm? Basically, it is a rhythm that is affected by light and dark and other factors, but the major factors is light and dark stimulus. So, when light enters the retina, it will trigger the body to respond to the stimulus. And in the other side, when darkness is present or light isn't present to the retina, melatonin production is increased, and therefore this hormone, melatonin, will increase our chances of sleeping as it prepares the body to enter to the sleeping state. It is called a sleep-inducing reaction, such as decreasing body temperature and also decreasing blood pressure. So this is the thing that makes you become more relaxed as you fall asleep. So let's get back to our main topic. What is the genetics behind sleep and circadian rhythm? So as we already know what circadian rhythm is and what sleep is, let's get to the molecular level of this process. So circadian rhythm involves lots of hormones or proteins and other organic stuff in our body to induce the process and to induce the 24-hour cycle in our body. So as we know, what makes these compounds present? So there are several genes affecting sleep and circadian rhythm in mammals or specifically humans. So these genes are classified into several loops. The first one is the forward loop. The forward loop includes clock, C-L-O-C-K, and also BMAL1, a homolog of DCYC. This is a gene that controls the forward loop in humans. Besides that, these two genes form a heterodimeric transcriptional activator. As we already discussed before, this is something that is really important in the transcription of the gene. So the second classification is the negative loop. This consists of period, period gene, and also the cryptochrome gene, or usually known as CRY homologs. There are three period genes, and also cryptochrome genes has two types. It is usually known as PER and CRY. It acts as a transcription modulator as well. So besides those two loops, the forward and the negative loop, we humans have another type of loops, which is the secondary loop. So genes in this category influence the first and the second type, which is the forward and the negative loops. First, we have the REVERB and also the ROR, or named as retinoic acid related organ receptor. These two genes regulate not CLK or clock, but its heterodimeric binding partner, which is BMAL1. So these two things control BMAL1. So aside from the ROR and REVERB, we also have DBP and E4BP4. DBP is short for D element binding protein, and E4BP4 is short for E4 binding protein. So this two protein is a thing that bind to the promoter sequence of D box of the period gene, and it alter the expression pattern of that gene. And lastly, we have DEC1 and DEC2. These two genes affect the synthesis of the MPER, or the period expression. It suppresses the E box, which is one of the transcriptional factor used in the transcription of the PER. Therefore, it will form an interlocked feedback loop. So, as we already know, what are the genes influencing the circadian rhythm? Let's talk about the external factors. So first, food. Food influences sleep and circadian rhythm through one and another pathway. The first one being molecular clock influence. So if someone consumes high-fat diet, or later on I will say as HFD, it can reprogram the peripheral circadian clock, and also it appears that this mechanism have effect to behavioral rhythms without affecting the clock gene in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So high-fat diet will impair chromatin recruitment of the heterodimeric substance CLK-BMAL1, as discussed before, to the target genes, while at the same time, it recruits supplementary transcription factors to supplement the lack of chromatin. It will recruit peroxisome proliferator activated receptor gamma, or known as PPAR gamma, and sterol regulatory element binding protein 1, or SREBP1, to the target gene promoters. So this process, it will suppress the transcription of the heterodimeric group CLK-BMAL1, and also suppress the endogenous clock, while it also transcribes a various series of non-clock controlled genes. So another thing that will cause genetic variability is also shift work, or probably the simple basic example is jet lag. If someone with an internal clock of sleeping in 9 p.m. and he or she travels to another country with a different time zone and sleeps and do daily activities with a different timeline, he or she will have a genetic gene expression variability or disturbance, and it will certainly affect sleep, mood, behavioral rhythms, and metabolism and endocrine activity. It will also give an effect to the increased chance of cancer, as it will decrease immune response against cancer. And besides that, I will also discuss about the factors. So factors influencing this whole process include sleep, food, metabolism, immune response, microbiomes, cancer, aging, and cardiovascular. It either influences it or it is influenced by the process. So another part is that what are the processes occurring in this whole circadian rhythm. So first, there is TF binding, then chromatin accessibility, enhancer activity, then histone modification, RNA polymerase II recruitment, chromatin interactions, then it will occur chromatin nuclear localization. Then it will continue on to the transcription, RNA processing, regulation of translation, and PTMs. And finally, all these processes will result in production of clock-controlled genes, clock-controlled proteins, and so on and so forth until it becomes a functional protein. So the network, the circadian gene network, it also has a post-translational regulator. It's regulated by E3 ubiquitin ligase pathway, or called FBXL3 and FBXL21 for cry, and also beta TRCP for PER or period. So besides that, it is also controlled by the 7 factors I mentioned: that sleep, metabolism, immune response, microbiome, cancer, aging, and cardiovascular. There's various pathways influencing this, but probably I won't discuss it any further. So thank you for your attention, and that is all from me.